Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us again here on a Gon Bops live discussion with some of our endorsees and our wonderful artists. Sorry for the delayed start today. We had a few technical issues we had to iron out, and it seems like that is the case sometimes with this kind of format. But thanks for your patience, and thank you very much for joining us. As in previous discussions and broadcasts that we do, if you have any questions for the panel, please feel free to post them, and we may be able to put your question live on screen and address it from the whole group, okay? And comments, anything is welcome. This is we're all included in this discussion together. It's a group effort. So, thank you for joining us and for your comments and your interest. Today we're very excited to have this panel with us. We're today featuring some of our women endorsees, percussionists and drummers from all around the world today. So this is very exciting for us. And so I'm going to start with the introductions, and thank you again for joining us, everybody. First off, JoVia Armstrong. JoVia hails from Detroit, Michigan, and is the winner of the 2014 Black Female Percussionist of the Year Award from Black Women in Jazz. Performing with artists like El DeBarge, The Impressions, Martha Reeves, and others, JoVia has also released her debut album, Fuzzy Blue Robe Chronicles, which she released in 2009. And she has 3 other records coming out later this year that she's been working on. So everybody say hi to JoVia. Hey, good to see you here.
Same.
Right on.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Our next guest, Melanie Howe, lives in Tennessee, and she brings her creative energy and style to a lot of different styles of music, from R&B to country to tropical rock to bluegrass music. As a band leader, her band Drop Dead Dangerous tours nationally, and she's known for her innovative mixing of drums and percussion together, hybrid drums and percussion setups equipped with various Gon Bops instruments. She brings an expressive female flair to the percussive art form, and has been inspiring other female drummers around the country and around the world. Everybody say hi to Melanie from Tennessee. Hey, I like your studio. It looks very cozy in there.
Oh, it is. I love this office. It's such a nice space.
Yeah, it looks like a fun room to create in.
Oh, yeah. All kinds of instruments in here to mess around with.
Right on. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Our next guest is originally from Venezuela. Jacqueline Rago is a multi-instrumentalist, composer, arranger, producer, and educator who specializes in Venezuelan folk music, also from other Latin American and Caribbean countries as well. She's an accomplished percussionist and vocalist, as well as an experienced mandolin player and a cuatro player. This is the national 4-string instrument guitar from Venezuela. She teaches at the San Francisco School, Dominican College in San Francisco. Say hi to Jackie, everybody. Hey.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you. Yes.
How are you today?
Just looking forward to this encounter so much for so long. Thank you for bringing us together.
Absolutely. So glad.
Yeah,
our last guest, Carolina Cohen, lives in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and she's joining us from there today, along with her father, Ricardo, to help us with some translation. And Carolina, she thinks her English isn't so great, but it is pretty good. It's a lot better than my Spanish. But we're so happy to have her dad along with us. Carolina is one of South America's most inspiring and influential congueros, and has performed worldwide, giving master classes and workshops and performances. She's appeared at jazz festivals in Peru, Uruguay, Chile, United States, and she currently leads her own group, Cohen Quarteto, and is an 11-year member of the Del Tal Pablo group of Latin American music, releasing 2 albums with them. Carolina, we get to see once in a while when she comes to the United States to come to the NAMM show, but we missed everybody this year, but hopefully next year. Say hi to Carolina, everybody.
Hey.
Hey.
Morning.
Welcome.
Buenos dias.
Thank you.
Well, it's really great to have everybody here. This is really a beautiful thing, and thank you for making the time for us to do this, and for joining us and sharing your insight. So we're going to, I've got a bunch of questions that we can, I'm going to throw out so we can get the conversation going. But before we get into that, obviously for all of us, it's been a pretty crazy, rough year. I think, at least from our side of things here, it seems like we're starting to come out of it here in the United States. I'm starting to see more live work happen in various cities around the United States. I'm also starting to see more people return to the studio. Seems like more and more when people are getting their vaccinations, there's a little bit more normalcy going on. So I want to just kind of like throw out that right now to the group, and we start with you, Carolina, and how things are down in Buenos Aires right now.
Let me tell you, things are going quite bad because we have a second or third wave of increasing cases and all that.
Right.
But with the vaccination, that it's a little bit slow. Maybe it will lower down in 1 month or so.
But we thought the years que agarraba gente más grande.
No, before it was getting old people, but now it's getting some young people also.
One of a friend of mine and a singer, very new, conocido.
A well-known singer died from
47 years.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it seems to me that I'm hearing this story from other countries, not just in Argentina, that certain countries are having a hard time getting the vaccines. But also, I'm also hearing that countries like the United States are starting to send vaccines out. So I hope that happens soon.
I hope so too. We are in winter or getting near the cold time, so
yes,
that's not good.
That's not good. And I'm sure everybody's just exhausted with trying to isolate and stay away from each other when it's not natural for us.
Foresee him or my mother. I'm in quarantine. Previous.
Yeah.
She must keep quarantine and just for then coming to look to me or going to see her mother,
right?
With which she makes music. She rehearses with her mother.
Okay. What does your mother play? Singer?
My mother sing and play instruments of percussion, minor instrument, maybe shekere, wiro.
Just helping. They used to have with her sister also. They used to have a
group
very
that mentioned De Tal Palo.
De Tal Palo. It was her mother, her sister, and her with a guitar, bass, and sometimes
another
reinforcement and percussionist.
I see. And do you play an instrument as well, Ricardo?
No, but it was for me that she started, because I bought a bongo when I went to Puerto Rico and bought a bongo there, and I like music very much. I sing,
okay,
and that's why she started with that.
Okay. For the other people on the panel today, obviously we're all here in the United States, so we're very lucky that we get to have access to these vaccines. I mean, Melanie, have you had access to a vaccine yet?
No, I've not gotten mine yet. Although the South in general is making them more readily available, which has been great because a lot more people are able to get out, and there is some live music that's happening in the South right now. So
yes, I'm seeing more of that. How about in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, Jackie?
Well, I'm a teacher, so through my school, we got the vaccination. I got both
Yeah.
of them, and we got tested every week through the school. And it's been great to have that support.
Right.
In terms of opening up, it's very slowly it's opening. I see some, venues like outdoors opening on the sidewalks where the restaurants are, the
Right.
restaurants that have enough space in front of, the in like on the sidewalk, they're kind of bringing some musicians, but it's still not inside, like indoor performances and stuff, if we need to wait for that. So
I see. Yeah.
yeah.
It's slowly returning here too, but it's like that.
Mhm.
And JoVia is also in Los Angeles. She now lives just north of where I am, so which is good. So
Yeah.
things are changing here in Los Angeles. It's for the better. Everybody, we just lost Melanie, so we hope that she lost her feed, so she'll hopefully return here. Okay, so I'm going to pose a few questions to the group first, and then we'll go from there. The first question I have, I guess, is, as a woman drummer and percussionist, the challenges that you've faced when you started, compared to today, compared to now, as you've developed your art, and have you seen a lot change in your career as far as the challenges that you started with and today? Is it eased up? Is it better? Do you still find some of the same challenges as women musicians? Anybody can start with that.
JoVia, please.
Well, I was going to say yes and no. I mean, it's. I think there have been some changes due to, number one, most of album sales are not happening. So we have this online streaming that's kind of affecting us as well, like just affecting the whole industry. But in particular with, I think with us being women, if I speak on that, I think the Me Too movement has kind of created this awareness about women in spaces, sharing spaces with men. So I think that there are some men who are starting to be way more careful about what they say around us. I was actually writing about that this morning. When I first started playing, men would challenge me. They would, if I get to the venue and they'll ask me, well, what do you play? And I say percussion. And one famous guy actually pinched me on the cheeks and said, oh, that's cute. And
right.
and usually guys would just kind of say, oh, okay, and say some words that were a little offensive. But after they saw me play, it was total different story. It was always, wow, you're really good. Can I get your number?
It shouldn't be that way. Obviously, it should never be that. I mean, we have to. The fact that we even have to, that even comes up, that just because of the gender, there's a question about the ability. It's crazy and silly, and it just seems like that with so many things in our world, where it's taken such a long curve to get to the point where we are now, and especially in the past 4 years. What we've seen happen in the past 4 years has been actually pretty unbelievable. That there's more awareness, but there's been this fight.
Because I think the thing is that awareness doesn't necessarily take away belief, right? It just means that this person may not speak their mind openly.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Awareness es tener cuidado.
Yeah.
And in my case, I think yo al principio no pensaba demasiado en el tema de ser mujer o no serlo.
At first, she didn't think too much about being woman or not.
Yo estudiaba.
She studied and she and tried to develop and to be better.
But quizás al principio había más sorpresa cuando veían a una mujer tocar y hoy es un poco más común?
At the beginning, she saw in people to be more surprised to foresee her playing, but now it's like a little bit more common, more normal for the people.
Pero todavía sorprende.
Still, it surprises a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting that, you know, it has to be that way. You know, I've never liked the term, oh, she plays okay for a girl. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's silly, ridiculous, you know. And I think we've made huge strides since those days when I first started myself. But there's just so much more room for growth, you know, and so much more room for acceptance. I mentioned to a few people before we started the show today that last night was a very big night for women at the Oscars, you know, because we had the first time a woman has won, only the second time that a woman has won the Best Director award at the Oscars last night, and the first woman of color. So you can see that there's just so much more room for growth with this. Carolina, I have a question for you. In your country, what is the climate for support for the arts from the country, from the government?
No, it's not.
Very small.
Very
small at the moment, yes.
But depende del gobierno a veces.
And it depends on the type of government. We have a very high fights between politics, and there is also sometimes where there is a preference for political known people to give them the support for music and for arts. They always are people known, and that not for unknown people, not for non-famous people.
Right.
They support the ones that will show that they are supporting the people, the famous ones.
Yeah. It's a political.
There are something support, very little, but something. In the pandemic moment, se dio pequeños.
She participated in some shows.
No, pero se dan pequeños. Se dieron plata del gobierno para gente que no podía, para ciertos artistas.
There was some money given from the government, very small amount, just to support the people, not with shows, but knowing that they can't live without shows, and well, they supported them with money.
Yeah. Yes. Well, it is interesting because I've been down there twice. Actually, it was before I knew you, but I've been in Buenos Aires twice for a trade show, for a music trade show, and met some wonderful people down there. And music and dance are so important.
And theater
and theater.
There's a lot, especially in Buenos Aires, but in other cities also. There is a very high artistic movement.
Yes.
Right.
Of all types.
Right.
Very high.
Yeah.
The culture it used to be at least very high here.
Right. Well, I hope it's changing. I see it changing in other countries, and I hope it, I know that it's always been a struggle down there. Do you get to travel much before COVID? Travel other countries all the time and play and perform?
I'm travel to Brazil because I have my boyfriend there, but I travel with my Gon Bops. I go with my Gon Bops and I try to play and teach.
She makes some she gives classes and lessons in Peru.
No, too bad pero en pandemia, preguntó.
No, out of pandemia.
Out or in pandemia? During the pandemic?
No, before.
Before, I know before, but during pandemia.
Yes. Peru,
Chile.
Chile, Colombia,
Yes.
Brazil.
Right. But now obviously not so much, obviously, from the last year.
No.
Yeah.
Only Brazil.
Yeah.
And very difficult.
Right.
To go to there.
Jackie, you and I met through another wonderful fellow endorsee, Roberto Quintero.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, was the first time I met you, I think it was in New York City when you were performing with a Venezuelan orchestra. Do you remember who was the leader for that orchestra again?
You mean an orchestra or an ensemble?
An ensemble.
A small ensemble.
But it was.
Wow, I went so many times. I mean, I've performed so many times in New York with different.
It was the first time we met. It was at a theater in New York City. Anyway, Roberto is the one that was good enough to introduce us, and we're so glad to have you. And you've been building your Gon Bops arsenal recently. You just got a new set of instruments recently.
Yes, and I have so many drums from Venezuela, where I'm from. And the thing is that when I first met Roberto and Anderson Quintero, which, by the way, my mother's name is Quintero, if you didn't know. So I'm Jacqueline Rago Quintero. And then when I told Roberto, say, we're cousins. No wonder. So anyways,
are you cousins?
No, but he said so. So anyways, so I got really interested in Gon Bops because I love the fact that most of the instruments, you can feel the wood. I'm a person who loves to get instruments that you can feel, the natural sound. And that for me is very important. In Venezuela, most of the drums or instruments I have, the string instruments or percussion instruments, they're like made in a very small scale. So the people who make them are in very remote villages, and they cut the trees whenever they can.
Right.
And everything is very natural. So I really, really fall in love when I first, saw Gon Bops instruments. I said, wow, I would love to have. And actually, I had a conga many years ago, a quinto, and unfortunately got stolen. And I said, one of these days, I'm going to get another Mariano model. And I got the bongos you see back there while I did at this place.
Yeah.
I had those bongos for over 20 years.
Okay.
The little Mariano model. Okay. So, yeah.
Well, and that's the thing with Gon Bops, and I think similar to the Venezuelan instruments too, is that we're very interested in different types of wood, and we offer instruments from different types of wood throughout all the different series, which each type of wood gives a different character and a different quality, and they all have a purpose. It's always very interesting to hear the nuances, with the Mariano being a very warm drum, great for recording, very, very, very warm sounding, and a lighter wood, actually, a lighter weight wood, which has nice lows, to all the way to our oak drums in the California series, which they're warm sounding with cut, and they have a great volume. So it's all these different nuances. We're very interested in that, and they're actually very interested in developing that even further. It's the same for our cajones, and even with the shell chimes you have behind you, those waterfall shell chimes, which
totally love them.
Those are very interesting too.
Yeah.
JoVia, you and I had a really fun experience just before the pandemic happened, where we got together and we did that video for the new Fiesta djembes, which was really fun. For those of you that have not seen it, if you go on our YouTube channel, you can see we have a video that features our colored series, djembes, the 4 different colors that actually match the same colors as our cajones. So we featured in that video, JoVia, Alex Acuna, Willie Calderon, and Walter Rodriguez. So if you haven't seen that, check that out, because it's really fun, and they all play just wonderfully together. and it's very improvisatory kind of ensemble that we kind of got everybody in the studio, and Alex kind of threw out some ideas, and then we just hit record. But it was really special.
Oh yeah, it was fun. I think it might have been my last official gig of 2020
right?
as well.
right.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a fun time.
You guys played so great together. So everybody check that video out. It's a really cool video.
Yeah.
Joe, talk a little bit about how you blend instruments together in a hybrid setup, because you do a lot of different styles of music.
Yeah.
From popular music to R&B to tropical, and you put stuff together. It's interesting how you think that way. Talk a little bit about how you put your setup together with that.
Yeah, so I'm a huge jazz fusion head. So the idea of blending different styles just came naturally to me. And being that I was from Detroit, where there's a lot of R&B, smooth jazz, we had a huge traditional bebop scene as well. So coming out of there and then meeting my mentor, Francisco Mora Catlett, who introduced me to Afro-Cuban percussion. And so what I started to do is, the more I worked with people, the more I was just interested in just different sounds, different instruments, different approaches to the same things. And so I had this one small struggle though, because my mentor moved to New York, and I was having trouble getting gigs on like the Latin jazz scene. And so I just started doing my own thing, and I wanted to discover who I was as a percussionist. And so I just started, with the cajon, and then I started like including like the hi-hat necks, and then on my right foot I had clave, and started incorporating congas and all this stuff. And before you knew it, I had this hybrid kit. And I always tell people it's not the idea to replace the drum set. It's really just to offer something different to the music. And I always compare it to, you either play acoustic guitar or an electric guitar. They're both guitars, but they sound different. And so they add to the music in a different way. And that's what I'm doing here. So, yeah.
Well, you're also just speaking of frequencies, right? With regards to what we do as percussionists.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the things that we keep in mind every single time we step on stage or in the studio, is we're thinking about frequency ranges, right?
All the time.
And also when we're working with guitar players, I notice myself, and I'm sure you do too, that the frequencies that we choose can get into the same frequency ranges sometimes with the guitarist. So we really have to think about those things, because sometimes in whatever instrument they choose, whether it's an acoustic instrument or a nylon string or an electric guitar, some of the higher pitched instruments that we choose, whether it's shakers or whatever, may not totally complement what they're doing. We have to think about that a lot, which I find as a player extremely exciting. I love that side of it, to blend and to accent and to see what's going to go well with the other instrumentalists in the band,
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. I think I have like 3 of everything, like bongo cymbals. Like I always have differences in those frequencies. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, exactly. One time I went to see you guys. I don't know if you know the great percussionist Manyongo Jackson, wonderful percussionist who's worked with Stevie Wonder and a bunch of different people. I went and saw him at a club one night, and he floored me with his ability to what he was choosing to play during the evening. Right. It was just so musical, and it was just, some of my favorite musicians are like that. They just know what to play where, and know how to paint the colors. And I just said to him, I said, man, I love what you just did. I just love how you knew what to put in the right place. And he goes, I'm just trying to stay out of the way. But that spoke volumes to me, I just want to give you guys a shout out from Andy Zildjian, who says hello to everybody.
Oh.
And he's watching, and thank you very much for being a part of this. So hello from Andy. I have another comment from someone named Katya Cooper. Katya is asking us if we can hear the shell chimes. Jackie, can you play the shell chimes? The waterfall shell chimes behind you. Can you play those real quick?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Hold on one
someone
second.
would like to hear those.
Yeah. Let me go. Can you hear this?
Yeah.
Could you hear it?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Very well.
They're beautiful. I love them.
One thing nice about that instrument is if you can play them like chimes, or it's also really nice to play them with your fingertips and just very delicately, and you get a good mic near it, and you can simulate. You can start out very slowly by playing like a couple different ones to sound like the rain is just starting, and then as you accent more and you play them more, it can sound like the rain is getting stronger and stronger. So it's an interesting instrument. I just put those in my studio with a set of 3 or 4 other types of shells from Africa. So I have 4 or 5 different pitch colors of that kind of thing, which is really fun to blend those kind of things together. Carolina, what is it like right now in Argentina? Are you teaching online at all?
I'm teaching only online.
Okay.
And I teach for students to
from all the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where? Barcelona, Los Ángeles, Perú. ¿Cómo se llama? Rotterdam. I forget the name. Rotterdam. Oh, a lot of Chile. A lot of students, but I don't. No doy tantas clases particulares.
She doesn't give too much particular classes. Grupos.
I do groups.
She makes groups mostly.
I see.
But I love that because I want to study too.
Yeah, of course.
It's good to have the group for studying.
Yeah. Do you find any issues with teaching online with when you're playing with students or having them play with you? Is there any issues with latency or any of that?
A lot, but I play and my student me sigue.
Imitate.
Yes, and es un esfuerzo tratar de no escuchar.
It's an effort to try to not to listen.
My students.
Not to listen to her students.
Then I tell you for play again alone.
Yeah.
But in the moment my student play with me, I don't hear you. Hear my student.
She plays. The student plays with her, but she tries not to listen to them,
right?
Because it
makes
a problem. Yeah. And then they play again, and she listens now and makes the corrections.
Corrections, right? Yeah.
Yes.
One of the things about your playing that I love so much, and what gives me inspiration, but also reminds me of another one of my favorite congueros is Elia Lazo. I've told you that before. That you both have a very similar style to playing congas, where it's very very smooth and a very good use of motion. So it doesn't look like you're using motion to the point where it's too much access for the muscles. It seems like it's very relaxed.
Oh, thank you, Rich.
And you get a lot of sound out of, and this is another thing that, for example, Sheila E. does, where Sheila E. is very good at getting a lot of sound out of small motion, but the right kind of motion with her hands and the extension of the arm, and all that. You do that extremely well. When you're working with a student that's trying to develop their sound, do you first start to work with that kind of thing with just simple motion?
I study with a lot of professors. I don't study with Eliel yet, but I love the ways he plays.
Yeah.
I love that he's very relaxing.
Yeah.
I study a lot of techniques. I studied the technique of the wrist, of the forearm, that I know. and the arm, and the forearm with the wrist, and study with a lot of patience, a lot.
Right.
Yes.
What you just said too, as far as the forearm to the wrist, the whole motion of the. I mean, we could have a whole discussion just on. Obviously, we can't do that today, but on discussion with technique, and everybody here has great technique and has worked on this a lot and knows how to get an instrument to sound well, but to be relaxed and to be able to get the sound out of the drum, very important. And you just said that.
And sorry, Rich, there's some important thing for me is the sound of the instrument. Roberto Quintero, Piri Manley Lopez, there is a very good teacher.
Yeah.
That two guys said to me the three most important things: the sound, the rhythm, and the concept. So the moment to play.
Right.
The sound, Piri Manley Lopez. You know Piri Manley Lopez. You have to know that person. Is a Cuban. Is a batalero, a better batalero.
Yes, I know who you're saying.
Okay. Piri said to me, the sound go to God, no?
Yeah. Sound goes to God.
Yeah, channeled, almost channeled.
Yes, and you make vibrations to the public.
Yeah.
Que te escuchan.
To the public.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's very important. And I'm not religion, no soy religiosa.
She's not religious.
Understand.
But it's important.
It's a spiritual thing.
Yes, I'm a spiritual.
Yes, I agree. I
and
agree.
the sounds, it's a very, very, very important.
It's interesting too when you say that, because when we say that, because I speak to composers about this, and I'm currently working on another record myself and my second album, and with my producer partner who I've toured with, and we talk about composing and we talk about creating a piece of music, and I'm sure all of us can dig this, is sometimes when we come up with something, whether it is a melody or a rhythm to start a piece of music, right? How many times have you all come up with something and then you listen back to it later after you've worked on it or record it and go, I don't even know where that came from, or I don't remember even playing that. That happens to me a lot, with I'll play a piano thing that I'm going to record percussion to or the rest of the music, and I'll go, I don't know where that came from. So I think that's some kind of streaming of consciousness, and the fact that we've put a lot of years into this art form and it's coming to us now, which I think is one of the most exciting things about writing music and coming up with music, is the fact that it's coming through us from another place. And again, I agree with you, Carolina, when it comes to that.
And that for that reason, it's very important to study technique.
Exactly. Yes. Matter of fact, you just said something that the great drummer Chad Wackerman said to me once about that. He said, you have to practice all that technique and learn all of that stuff and get really good at it, so that when you're making music, that's not what you're thinking about.
Yes.
You're not thinking about technique. You're not thinking about riffs. You're not thinking about chops. You're thinking about the music at that point. Yes. But to get the foundation first, so that then you can express yourself. I'm going to bring Melanie back in. Melanie, I have a question for you regarding where you live and percussion and the styles of music that you play. And also, second part of this question is your dance, because you're a dancer as well. So first of all, in some of the styles that you play with using percussion, who inspired you to approach country music, for example, with some of the setups that you do, and then your hybrid setups, and how you approach playing that kind of music?
So my hybrid setup is very strange for a lot of people to see. I know that I talked with JoVia a little bit on doing the hybrid drum kit thing, incorporating the Cajon. It's actually kind of funny, in a lot of country and southern rock music, you don't typically see the instrumentation that I use.
We lost her. I think she's having some internet issues, everybody. So we'll keep trying to get her back. I'm going to put a question up on the screen, everybody, and let's see if we can answer this as a panel. Who are the biggest influences from everyone to pursue percussionists? This is from Eric Wenzel. Anybody can start.
It wasn't, for me, not a particular person. It was just music for me.
Yeah.
I just love music. I started off as an orchestral percussionist and went into Afro-Cuban. And I remember back in my undergrad years, I was also playing with the African percussion and dance ensemble in a Korean folk drumming group. Brazilian music, I was studying Brazilian percussion. And so it wasn't necessarily a person, because I admired just about, there's very few percussionists that I didn't like, but Bill Summers, Paulino da Costa, Alex Acuna, who, because of Gon Bops, I was able to work with a little bit. And yeah, it hasn't been people, it's the music, and I love different cultures. So it's just kind of everyone. It's everything that I love about it. That's what got me into it.
Right. How about you, Jackie? Do you have some people that were instrumental in inspiring you? And what came first, by the way? I have a question for you. Before, was it percussion or was it guitar?
It was a guitar in Venezuela. Yeah, I started with the Venezuelan Cuatro, which is the national string instrument. But I discovered that in every ensemble that I played Cuatro, there was almost always percussion. And the Cuatro has this capacity of also being a percussion instrument. So it's a string and percussion instrument. So in order for you to accompany the ensemble, you need to know exactly what the percussion is doing. And a lot of the strums that we play are, patterns that are coming from other percussion instruments. And then when I was 7 years old, growing up in Venezuela, I got a drum on my hands and I started to play. And from then on, I developed a passion for, and also a curiosity of learning how the ensemble is being built. So bringing together the percussion and the string instruments was something very natural. And then I also second the fact that it's about music. It's about music. The music is inspiring you to discover different sounds, different colors, textures, and percussion in Latin America, and especially in Venezuela, that has such an African, West African influence, especially in music from the coast. Everything is so rhythmic that you gotta be on top of the percussion, even if you're a singer.
Right.
So, rhythm comes first.
And from your country as well, the technique of playing maracas.
Oh yeah,
is pretty unbelievable. It's really incredible to see. And I've seen you play the maracas, and it's just so great. And I'm hoping someday that we will have a authentic set of maracas, the Venezuelan style of maraca, in our lineup. I know that Luisito Quintero has some friends that he's brought to NAM and has given us some samples, and they're really wonderful. And so one day, hope to have those and get you playing some on video for us.
Thank you. Yeah, I will. I'm ready.
It's just an amazing instrument when it's played traditionally.
Yeah, and in terms of who are my main influences, definitely my first percussion teachers in Venezuela. Everything was like Carolina said, about technique, about being fluent in everything you do, and also developing that feeling and ear for music. Being so musical after you practice so much all your techniques. How do you gonna be sensitive about being the person in charge of rhythm and all that? Is a big responsibility to be a percussionist.
Right.
Yeah. So but there's so many. Right now I'm blank.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
As well for me and for everybody. There's so many influences and so many different areas of music that come in. Let's go back to Melanie. Mel, we keep losing you, so we're going to try it again. Can you hear me?
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It seems like we have some sort of interference. Sometimes it sounds like typing or something. But can you hear us okay? And now your screen froze. Okay, so we'll see if she can get her internet together. Let's see. JoVia, I think initially when we first started working together, there was a gentleman that used to work with us named Bob Rupp that introduced us initially. At that time you were living in Chicago, right? I think you were mostly in Chicago.
Yeah.
And now you're back in school studying. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm in grad school now.
And what are you working on?
Oh my God. I'm in a PhD program. And it's the integrated composition, improvisation, and technology program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it's basically a program, school program that was built for folks like me who are musicians and composers who also use technology and computers to create our music.
Okay.
So that's the gist of the program. What I'm doing right now is I'm kind of doing my dissertation on identity in music and how we can use music for healing, how to cope with unconscious bias, systemic racism, because until we get rid of it, we're gonna feel that pressure. So I'm kind of studying frequencies, brainwave activity, and things like that to, figure out how can we use this in our community to help us cope with these pressures in life.
That is such an interesting thing, and it's also a community thing to bring people together to think that way, and your album. I love your record.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you're coming out with. But one of the things that I liked about it, I wanted to ask you about a specific song. Actually, there's a song called Technope. It's called, I'm just wondering did you create that groove with the drummer on that, or were you playing a hybrid? Were you playing with loops? What was that?
Oh, with that song, you're the first person to ever really ask about that song on an album. So that was my homage to Detroit. There's a lot of electronic Detroit musicians who created techno, Detroit techno. And that groove, you guys have to correct me. I think in some parts of South America, they may call it Gaga, but we hear it everywhere. Just the boom, 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 boom. And so that groove was mostly my programming. I think I programmed that groove in Reason. I was using that software at the time. And I was just having fun with that one. Yeah. It's
so fun to layer things and to stack things. And, I don't know if any of you work with a program called Stylus. But Stylus is a great loop and percussion loop program, drum program that is great for ideas and great for stacking of sounds, where you might want to keep some of it or maybe replace it with organic after you use it. It's a really interesting program. It's the same company called Spectrasonics that does Omnisphere.
Yes.
But it's really a great tool for composing and things like that. I want to go back to Carolina. Carolina, when you talk a little bit about dance in Argentina and how it affects your playing.
Sorry, again. I didn't understand. Sorry.
Talk a little bit about dance and learning to dance and how it affects your ability to play rhythmically. And do you learn to dance when you're younger? Is the dance style tango? Is it more like old school? Is it? I'm just curious how that comes into play.
Antes de tocar bailaba.
Well, before playing and for earning some money, she dedicated to dance and to teach salsa.
Yes, you remember.
I remember. I went to the class.
My sister and I go to dance salsa here. Estaba de moda.
In a park. It was really, really how do you say?
The word. It's
everybody wanted to dance salsa here, so they played. They danced in a park. They with a big radio and reproducer, and they were like 50 people dancing.
Casino, the style, Cuban style casino.
Okay.
And I learned salsa and son, and I want to learn rumba, but I never never no hice, nunca lo hice.
Never did it.
Never did. But I think that is very important for the percussion. Here hay una frase que dicen el que toca no baila. El que toca no baila.
There is a sentence used here that is, the one who plays doesn't dance.
But I don't think that. Yes, it's a very phrase all the people says.
Everybody says it, but she doesn't think about it, and she doesn't think it's real.
But for the tango thing, I love tango, and me encantaría bailarlo, pero todavía no lo.
She would like to dance tango, but she doesn't.
No.
Okay.
Same happens to me.
Well, to me, and I think this is one of the advantages to people who are musicians from Latin American countries, is dance. And I think that's one of the things that you have over other, especially people that grew up here in America, that might not have dance as their background. Because in most of the Latin American countries, dance is an integral part of learning music. Even when you're young, dances. And I think it helps the body and the mind connect rhythmically in a way that you have an advantage over those of us that don't have that. I think that's one of the things that I've always, as a percussionist, been envious about, is that when I listen to anybody that I love in Latin music, whether it's from Cuba or Colombia or Argentina or Venezuela, there's a thing about having the ability to be able to move your body correctly. And even like, I saw a great clinic one time with Alex Acuna, and he got everybody, it was at PAS actually, and he got everybody out of their seats, in front of their chairs, to move and do a little bit of a movement while they were clapping. And it was very difficult for the Westerners to do this sometimes. We have to really work at it. It's not something that we grow up with.
But in the folklore of the north of the country, the folklore, chacarera, samba, in few provincias, en algunas provincias.
In some provinces inside the country.
Dance and play.
Right.
It's common. People, young people.
It is, in my opinion, we have very small amount of Black people here in Argentina, so the type of dances are different, are not so rhythmic like the northern part of South America. It's not Afro. So what she does is not very common. Of course, there is a lot, but it's not the root of the music in Argentina.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to add is very interesting because like in other countries, like where I come from, they said if you can dance, you can play.
Yes.
And it also, I think it has to do with the geographical location, like Venezuela being on the northern part of South America, the influence that came through the Caribbean coast of Venezuela. When I was growing up, I thought mambo and pachanga and guaracha and all these rhythms coming from the islands were Venezuelan. Until you grow up and study and learn, were these genres of amazing music that is, and it has that indigenous West African and European mix, and that's. Dancing is probably number one
Yeah, I think it's also, you know, when we're learning rhythms, as you all know, I think is if you can sing the rhythm, right? Then you could play the rhythm, you know, with some practice. But you know, I have some teachers that have these great techniques of verbalizing the rhythm with words, you know, so that you can learn the rhythm from. I mean, if you think about how we speak rhythmically. Our sentences are rhythmically. And if we were to say a sentence and then take a piece of music and write down what we just said in notation, we see rhythms.
Right.
I think that's a good way to translate that, you know? Yeah. I'm going to go to Melanie. Melanie, can you, as long as you can hear us here, I want to get back to the question I had for you. Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we were talking about where you live and
hear you, yes.
Okay. When we lost you, we were talking about country music and how you approach it as a percussionist, and who influenced you to think in those terms, or to how you approach playing that kind of music, and what you find your band playing in a lot. Ah, we lost her. Okay. Well, we'll keep trying. We'll keep trying. I'm going to go back to you, Jackie, because talking about what you're involved with up in the Bay Area, you teach a lot of children. Is that correct?
Oof, yeah, I ended up being a full-time teacher during COVID because I'm in a private school. We've been open since November, meaning on campus. I do K-5, and I do a lot of percussion with them. I also certified as an ORF teacher, and so I'm having them playing xylophones and all sort of hand percussion and congas, and you know.
What's an ORF? What is ORF?
ORF is actually it's a certification for music education that you can take 3 levels, and it takes 3 years, so it happens every summer, and they call it the levels. And
right.
Then it's actually a certification in which you can learn, let's say, techniques of putting together storytelling with music, with singing, body percussion, and art all together. So it's a pretty awesome way of approaching music from so many different directions and putting everything, all the elements of music together, not just playing and learning how to, how to produce music for the different levels, but how to bring all these elements, in one lesson.
Huh? What age group are you teaching?
Now K-5.
Oh.
Yeah. It's just a big, I have over 200 students. So
wow.
Yeah. But I've been always also teaching adults. I did for maybe 14 years at the jazz school in Berkeley, also worked at La Peña Cultural Center. And then I go around many countries around the world also teaching. Actually, when I get hired to share, what I've been doing with ORF in terms of Latin American percussion, also I do that. So teaching is also part of my career, and
right.
Yeah. So
and what's the recording situation up there now? Are you seeing more of that coming, or is it more home studio still, or?
Well, I'm trying to build up my home studio. I've been lucky enough to, record in big studios still, because, big studios are disappearing.
Right.
But the playing live in a big studio, like for example, I recorded my last album, Connection, with the V-Note Ensemble, and we have Phil Lewis was our producer from Maginus Project, and he took us to in Berkeley to what you call what am I forgetting? They just closed the studio.
Oh, they did.
Okay. It's gonna come. Anyways, I think it was one of the last times that I recorded live in a big studio.
Right.
And basically, yeah, trying to build up the studio, but teaching. I mean, like JoVia, you're PhD dissertation sounded wow to me, like everything you're doing, because I do a lot of identity with music with the kids. Yeah, I do a lot of that, and trying to bring, especially during these times, trying to make every child feel very organically identify with culture through music, which is my discipline. And it's really interesting because I send them homework or assignments like, what are you listening at home? Where's just family coming from? When you travel, do you listen to music? And then they share their songs, and it's a way for them to exercise and practice social justice and equity and diversity in a very organic way. So I totally identify with what you're doing in school. So I think it's really important. Music is so powerful that can bring people together because it's inclusive. And
that's awesome. That's really awesome.
JoVia, we just got a question from a guest here, JoVia, that is very curious about your PhD because you had touched on it. But Alexandra Gellis just asked a little bit more about your PhD research. Can you speak a little bit more about what you had mentioned? Somebody wants to know just a little bit more without going into deep detail, but that's very interested.
Yeah. So I'll give you like a short story then. So how I got even thought about doing this was I was teaching. I've taught for 20 years as well. Music technology, percussion, and I was teaching a beat making workshop one day, and there were 3 young Black girls there. They were in high school, and they were watching me at first, and then about 10 minutes into it, some boys walked up, and the girls started to walk away, and I said, "Where are you going?" And these girls turned around and looked at me, and they said, "Girls don't do this." Girls don't do this. And I'm looking at myself and I'm like, wait, what do you mean? And so that it stuck with me all these years. That was about 10 years ago. And it stuck with me because I was standing in front of them and they couldn't see me. And it really says something about the media and the world we live in. When we don't see ourselves doing certain things, we don't even believe it, And that is really one small story of my experience as an educator as to why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because as I started to write about this dissertation, I started to realize that I too had those self-doubts and things because I didn't see women doing it either. And, I saw Sheila E., I saw Terry Lynn Carrington and Cindy Blackman when I was growing up. But that was just 3, and it didn't tell me the story of how they got there. How did they do it? Right. They just seemed like these special women, right? So that's what kicked it off. So what I viewed was an alternate reality. Those girls had an alternate reality, right? It was their reality, it's real to them, but not to the whole world. And so I'm hoping to build if you can imagine this, if you can imagine like a yurt or just a place, not a nonprofit, a room where there's virtual reality, a virtual reality space where kids can go in and make music together. And just like with gaming, I could sit here in my room and play a video game with a kid across town, right? So imagine if kids can actually make music together from different locations. And one reason for doing that is because where I was teaching was in downtown Chicago. And so there were 3 boys who came in one day. They were leaving out 25 minutes after they got there. I had explained to them, this space was built for you. It was for teenagers. It's called U-Media. They left out and I stopped them and I said, where are you going? And they said, we don't belong here. And again, I'm thinking, this space was built for you. It took me 10 years to realize they weren't talking about that space. They were talking about downtown Chicago. When you go there, you see suits, ties, briefcases. You see people who don't look like you. And, when you go to a store, people are following you around. You don't feel welcomed. And so you don't have to tell people you don't belong here. You can tell them that just by in how you are every day. And
Right.
so it's those unconscious biases that affect kids. And if they would understand that, no, you belong downtown too, you can come here, then they would be brave enough, they would have enough courage to leave their neighborhoods and venture out more.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
It's really great. It's so important. Yeah. More of that. Yeah. More of that, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Melanie, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. So let's come back to you, because I want to hear a little bit about what we were talking about.
And I'm so sorry about, I think there was just an issue with my internet, like the whole beginning of this thing, and looks like it's running well now. So
yeah, no, it's okay.
Hopefully I can talk for a little bit before I get booted.
It's all right.
Yeah, so we started talking about a little bit about the type of percussion that I use in country music and in Southern rock. You don't typically see that kind of a setup. Originally, I played as like the auxiliary person in a lot of different bands. I was, there was the drummer, and then I was kind of like, the side person. And when I started putting together this hybrid drum kit, I wanted to be both of those things. I wanted to kind of take control of the rhythm there. And I was at PASIC, and I met Walfredo de los Reyes, Sr., and he was doing a clinic about hybrid drum kits and how you can take, your congas, bongos, and put it into the drum set. And he kind of demonstrated some of that at PASIC. And then when I met him afterwards, he was showing me photographs of stuff that I was kind of dreaming of doing. And when I saw that he was doing it and succeeding in it, nobody questioned what he was doing. I was like, well, I could do something like that too. And so he was a big inspiration for me to start building the type of drum set that I play. And like you were saying, I do kind of get like confused looks every once in a while. Or like, wait, you're the drummer for the band, and you brought a cajon, or what are you doing with that djembe? You got it sideways, using it as a kick, just being innovative. And then when other drummers and percussionists approach me about it, they're like, this is really cool concept. I like it. Why do you place the instruments the way you do? And I'm a big advocate of sounds and tones and how to make, fill out the band in such a way that, we are always questioned. People come in and they see, if it's just me and my guitar player, Kitty, they're like, we totally thought there was like way more people here until we saw the two of you.
Yeah, the way you use djembe and adding that lower frequency sometimes can take the place, and I've done this myself, of the bass. And you're doing a duo where you can use the bass part of the djembe or the cajon, and then you're using your feet and your hands. And actually, I think it was because of Wilfredo and Danny that we met you, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was talking with Walfredo, he was like, you just have to meet my son. You would get along with him so well. You could learn so much from him. And I think it was at that same event. No, it was at the NAMM show after that PASIC that I met Danny. And we just really hit it off. And we'd been working on some lessons together and collaborating. So, and that's how we met you. He had a set of Gon Bops congas. Right. And he was like, you should try these. I think that you would really like them. I took him on tour for a full year. And I was like, I'm absolutely in love with these drums. I've got to get some of my own. And he is also the one who taught me. I use, in my setup for Drop Dead Dangerous, I use 2 tumbas. And I just have one tuned up to the conga pitch. And it keeps that low end throughout. So yeah, Danny taught me that. That's what he does as well.
Right, exactly. And then you also have dance in your background.
I do. So I actually studied percussion at the University of Tennessee before I ever sought out any coaching with Danny or with Giovanni. And I learned a whole lot there. And then I moved on into learning dance. I taught ballroom, Latin, and swing. I actually gave percussion a break while I was learning dance and teaching dance. And I just missed that playing so much. Whenever I would hear the music and be dancing the music, I'm like, you know, as much as I loved dance, I belonged in the band, you know?
Yeah. I think that, you know, and this is for everybody, but I think when we know how to have some sort of dance in our background, it also helps our ambidexterity as far as using all four limbs.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree with that.
I feel like I'm lacking in that area because I am not a good dancer. And I'm intimidated about dancing myself. It's like I'm so used to being behind my cage, you know, behind my kit or behind my percussion setup, to get out in front of that and to move, you know, it helps with a little tequila, actually.
Oh,
but
maybe you need to have some lessons from me or Carolina.
Yeah, I know. I would like that.
And Ron.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
Ron.
Right. You know, I want to get back to JoVia for just a second, because Andy Zildjian just made a comment that what he is observing from what your studies are is that you're aiming at creating a safe physical surrounding, so that the safe physical surrounding can help foster confidence in the mental and the emotional surrounding, which I think is a really interesting observation. But that's kind of your goal.
Yeah. And I want to say too that, you know, we're all affected by, you know, systemic racism, right? And
right.
Unconscious biases and everything, right? So my research, just to make it smaller, I'm focusing on Black girls. But yeah, it's creating this space where I feel like I'm meeting them where they already are. If they're already thinking this alternate reality that, you know, they're not allowed in certain spaces and not allowed to do certain things, that actually kills their hope. And so it doesn't really reinforce the idea that, you know, they should be setting goals and achieving these things, right? And so, especially in certain neighborhoods where, you know, at certain times of night, they'll go outside, they'll go to the next neighborhood or the next block. So it is about creating these spaces for them to do what they want to do as well. As I was teaching at UMedia in Chicago, one thing that we did there was we showed students this stuff and then we let them run with it. It wasn't about, hey, you got to come to my workshop every day. It's kind of like, all right, you came to one workshop, I'll show you something. And then you kind of sit back and observe what they do with it. And that is how you see kids start to create and discover and innovate as well. But yeah, these spaces I think are really important. So I do write about that, Andy, in a dissertation. I talk a little bit about space and how important it is for us to feel comfortable in spaces.
Right. Exactly. So important. So important.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, and this is for everybody here, about your personal practice routine and kind of how you, because I know for myself, when we're percussionists and drum set percussionists, we have a lot of choices, right? So we have a lot of directions that we can go within a day. I tend to find myself focusing on a couple of different instruments per day or something, and I'll say, oh, I'm just going to work on this today, or I'm going to work on this today. And but do you find yourself having more of a scheduled routine of working on certain instruments, or do you find, is it more like, you know, what you feel like during that day? And I mean, where do you get your inspiration to work on things? Because it's a difficult thing for musicians in general, I think, you know.
No, sorry, I don't know who.
You go ahead.
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry, JoVia. No, I think it's very important to write, escribir, right?
Right.
La rutina.
The routine. Have it written.
Yes, because porque hay muchas cosas para estudiar.
There are many things to study. Many topics.
Y es importante ponerse los objetivos claros.
And it's very important to have the clear objectives and ordered, and in order to what to do.
Priorities.
Yes.
No? And write, because if you have in the head only, maybe you change today, study one thing, and tomorrow change?
For what I've learned from my daughter is that she's quite methodic, and she really takes her time for studying, then for practicing something or recording something, and then for what she tells me,
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
and then teaching from some hour to some hour, and then go back to gymnastics.
Yoga.
Yoga.
Rich, you do yoga too, no?
I do, yes, for a long time.
Because she's quite thin and small, and she needs. It's the first thing that I told her when she said, I want to be a percussionist, and I said, you must do gymnastics. Because it's hard.
It's interesting when you just said you write down the routine, because it's similar to actually exercise, because I know for myself, I can't do everything in one day, right? So I'll spread it out. Well, one day I do yoga every day, but some days I'll do weight training, and I'll do just my upper body, or I'll do my lower body another day with bicycling or something. But there has to be some sort of way to map that out so that you get the most out of it, but you're not thinking or trying to do everything in one. I got to do everything, and it doesn't work, So, and I think there's the burn.
Maybe for 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, 4, you change. Yeah. But the routine, the word says routine.
Right.
The routine.
I think we all find ourselves, when we're working on all these different instruments that we play, we find ourselves, realizing that, I'm stronger on this instrument than I am on those instruments. I'm stronger here. Let's say, for example, I'm stronger on cajon than I am on congas, or vice versa. So we tend to spend a little bit more time on the instrument that we're stronger at, whereas we might need more time on that other instrument. I find that inspiration from all of you, and from watching you play, but also learning from people that I've studied with, and that it really helps me stay focused and enjoy the practicing thing a little bit more, but it is very physical, and you're right, Ricardo, it's physical, and we need to stay in shape. I mean, most of the drummers I speak with, there's some sort of practice routine with regards to exercise as well, to stay in shape and to try to keep ourselves loose, because the more relaxed we are, the better we're going to play, I wanted to ask Melanie about singing and playing at the same time, because I recently saw a great interview with Don Henley, somebody that's been an inspiration to me over the years, as far as playing drums and singing at the same time. It's a difficult thing. I don't do much of it anymore. I used to do more of it when I was younger, but I noticed for myself that it limited my drumming to the point where I wasn't enjoying playing drums as much, trying to be a lead singer. So I tended to gravitate more as to being a background vocalist, which is what I do. But talk about the challenge of playing and singing at the same time.
So there's kind of two things for me with that is when I'm playing my hybrid drum kit, there are some times where I'm more upright. I'm playing with sticks or with the congas, and I'm upright, and I'm using I'm a lefty, so I'm using my left foot on that bass djembe. But when I'm upright, it has a different feeling to sing than when I have my cajon tilted a little, and so my legs are essentially a little bit closer as I'm pitched forward a little bit more. And I had a lot of difficulty in the beginning doing that, because getting your breath correct, and you might be kind of rocking a little bit on the cajon. It's very different from when you're standing up and projecting your voice. In fact, whenever I'm practicing something vocally, I don't do it standing up. I never do. I'm always sitting as I would be at my drum set, and paying attention to my breath and where I breathe. And a lot of my practice has to do with, I know if I'm hitting this certain spot on the drums, I'm putting that in my head together with where I need to be breathing, especially if we're hitting some of those really high harmony notes or a belt or something like that. Breath is so important, trying to get those lined up with drumming.
Actually, that gets back to what we were just talking about, right? With regards to breath control, because, you know, if you can keep yourself in somewhat of a good shape and limber and learning breath control, I know that yoga helps me with that. Yes. It helps with singing, you know, but some of the stuff that I've had to do with singing and playing at the same time, it's been a real challenge. And definitely if my breathing is good, then I'm better at what I do. But, you know, yeah, it's interesting because even the best drummers that sing will have the same comment about it's all
about breathing.
Carolina, you do a lot of singing.
Oh, she's muted.
Yeah. Sorry. I have troubles with my voice because this position.
Yes.
No? This position.
Uh-huh.
When I play cajon, Melanie says I have the same issue with the cajon and sing here. Oh, yes. my professor, my singer professor says me, no, try to put with this position. No, that.
I actually have a fast clip, mic clip that I use in case of like if I'm leaned forward, I can tilt my mic just slightly, and then if I'm doing a song where I'm not on the cajon as much, I can just quick little shift, and it helps. It really does.
Have you tried the headset microphones? Because there are some companies, some of them are not so good, but some make a pretty good one. And I know that some.
But with that, we have to study a lot of the dynamic.
Yeah.
You have to do.
Yeah. Yes. So coming back from the microphone.
Yeah. Because it's right there.
It's impossible with those headsets.
Another thing, another neuron.
The neuron that
don't work.
Proper neuron she wants to activate.
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
I think personally, I would be too rowdy for the headset mic. It would go flying across the room somewhere. I can't even play in glasses whenever we do our shows because they'll fly off.
Yeah. I've actually, and I'm sure you have too. I've hit my glasses, you know, sometimes with a stick or something, and it's a good thing my glasses were there, actually. Well, everybody, we're getting to the end of the show here, but before we sign off, I just wanted to ask and this is for the group, what you would say to young players. They don't have to be women, obviously. They can be any gender, but women maybe in particular that want to get into music now and that want to pursue this art form. And how would you advise them with all your experience and with the challenges that we've had this past year and things starting to change? And I personally feel there's going to be new opportunities that we don't even know yet. That is going to be really great. I have a very positive feeling about what's coming, you know. Obviously it's more difficult for some countries than others, but what would you say to young players that ask you, how do I get into this? What should I do? Anybody can take the question.
I would say don't be afraid of your own personal innovation just because it doesn't fit the mold of other people in society, of people, even of people that you look up to. If you have ideas, try it. May as well just try it.
Right.
I'll actually say, and maybe I'll twist your question a little bit, for those of us who are maybe from the U.S. trying to do music from other cultures and countries, is listen to the language and try to learn that. I had the most trouble learning clave when I first started, and so I couldn't get to Cuba. So what I did is I didn't listen to any American music for like 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And it took me a while, but that's what helped. And so even now I still struggle with the language, but you know, technique is good, but don't forget about the language.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll go next. I will second what Melanie and JoVia said. And also specifically, if young people have feelings, passion, and the desire to do music, absolutely go for it, because through music we can learn so many other things. As I said before, music is inclusive. You can learn about, like JoVia, learning music from the Caribbean, like the clave from Cuba, for example. You already there are learning about cultural work, about learning other languages, about this universal language that right now through COVID, a lot of people have gone through COVID by listening to music, and that is soothing. It is healing. I have this section called the healing power of music that I do with the little kids, and it's exactly about bringing these other elements of music that are very human and organic. So music is, for me, is a human right. Everybody has the right of music, and every child and young person should go through the experience of music to learn about life in general. So I think, taking it from that perspective, music is so positive that, you know, it's something amazing that everybody should have the right to experience. And I cannot express and emphasize that more, because I live it every day when I work with my personally, and with my students and my colleagues. So
it crosses every border. It's a
and
worldwide
also
language.
music doesn't have gender, so everybody can do it. So that's
exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. Carolina?
Primero, todo lo que dijeron anteriormente me parece súper importante.
All what is said till now is very important for her. She thinks she thinks the same as you all, and
maybe si tengo que agregar algo,
if she has to add something,
then the person feel the love for the music first, then the discipline, encontrar el placer en la disciplina.
Oh, she says if somebody loves the music, then she speaks about the importance of the discipline and to find the pleasure in the discipline.
Because it's the hard part for develop something, technique, transmission, transmitir por la música.
To transmit through the music, the feelings.
Yes, and for that, it's very important, the technique. It's a part boring, maybe, but if you find pleasure on that, it's a very important thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And all of that.
Yeah. Well, we can't thank all of you enough for coming with us today on this journey. This has been fantastic, and you are all a huge inspiration to us at Gon Bops, and to women all around the world, and to musicians all around the world. What you're doing and how you're looking at your art form is we're very thankful to be working with all of you. And you know, from me personally, it's just so great every time we get to work together, and can't wait till this is past us so that we can get together again and have a meal together. And you know, also I wanted to say to the audience, you know, if you're a woman out there and you want to know more about Gon Bops, you can reach out to these ladies via their social media. They're happy to share information with you and get in touch with us. Honestly, we want to know more about you. We want to know more about what you're doing out there, and we are interested in increasing our collaborations with women percussionists and drummers. So, and Gon Bops is a growing brand. We're constantly innovating things, and we need you. So please get in touch with us. And if you have any questions for our panel, by all means, reach out to them. You can also send messages to us. I'll be happy to pass on notes to them, and we can just keep this conversation going, So everybody stay well, and thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Rich, for all the
Thank you.
support. Yes.
This is so great.
And nice to meet you all.
I'm so glad that I got to hear at least some of all of your stories, and I'm so glad that the internet finally worked a little bit so I could talk to you.
Yes,
we are too.
For my part, congratulations.
It's always tricky, right? It's always tricky.
There's always something.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned, everybody, to our social media and our website. We'll announce future live broadcasts coming up soon. And ladies, stay with me for just a second. I'll be right with you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And again, thank you to our panel. Thank you to Jackie, JoVia, Carolina, and Melanie for joining us today. I want to thank also everybody that tuned in and all your great comments and questions. And just know that after we end the broadcast today, this gets archived. So if you missed part of it, or if you'd like to share this with your friends, you can see it both on Facebook and YouTube. It's archived on both of our pages. So please check it out and share it with your friends. And thank you, everybody. We will see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.